Tonight we're going to be counting the Sfira of Yesod of Yesod. That would be, today we're in the 40th day of the Omer. And the entire week of Yesod, we're concentrating mainly on relationships. And I explained a couple times that every Sfira has its etzem, its essence. That's why we also repeat constantly one Sfira that's including in one of the Sfirot. So when we're looking at the Sfira of Yesod, the etzem, the essence of Yesod, is the power and the soul of communication. Now, this is a very unique power because any other creature doesn't have this power. So we have a certain koach, a certain power in the nefesh, that it's called koach ha'idkashrut, the power of communication. And where do we apply this power? In speaking. I mean, you can communicate with your hands. Some people communicate only with their hands. But mainly, how do you communicate? With your mouth, with your speech. And when I communicate, what is really the result of my communication? That I connect between one person to another. If you put yourself on a deserted island, you can talk all day long. You don't do any type of connection. But if I want to connect now to another person, then I use my power of communication. And even if it's not done with my mouth, then it will be done in another way. But even if you notice, if you ever travel to a different city, and there was a foreign language there, when you're asking your questions with your hands, you still say the question with your language. Where is the... So you still communicate with speech. Now, Yesod Sheba Yesod, the connection of both together, is the tikkun, is the rectification of the communication. Because in most relationships, the communication is bad, and then the relationship is bad, because there's no communication. So Yesod Sheba Yesod, that's how deep and profound this Sfira is the tikkun of the communication. Now, here in this specific Sfira, we see how the Yesod itself, the Sfira of Yesod itself, reveals itself. And any connection between two entities, should better say two humans, is depending on good communication. Bad communication, there's not going to be any type of relationship there, or any type of a connection. So we're depending on a good communication. If a person is a very good communicator, then in most cases his relationships are good. And if the person, it doesn't mean that if a person is amazing in communicating, all his relationships are amazing. But I'm just saying that usually a person that knows how to communicate, most of his relationships will be good. Of course, depending on all the people. But nevertheless, in any type of relationship, good connection will depend on very good communication. Most of the relationship problems are because of bad communication. Because one person thought this, another person thought that. That's why in our generation the relationships are even worse, because everybody's communicating with each other through text and not with words and not face to face. Sometimes arguments are all through text. You know, it's face to face, it's a completely different thing. But nevertheless, we see that most of the problems in relationships is communication. Even if you go to the original, to the first sin in the Torah, every time that we want to go to the root of something, we want to go to the beginning. So we want to go to the root of every sin, go to the first sin. Even there was a problem with communication. That if the communication between Adam and Chava was good, then there wouldn't be the sin. Because Adam didn't give Chava all the instructions. He didn't tell her every little thing. He just told her, listen, from this tree we don't eat. He didn't tell her every little detail. He should have or could have told her, listen, from this tree, Hashem told me, this we touch, this we don't touch. Even then there wasn't a good communication. He could have told her more details, but he didn't. He just assumed that she'll figure it out, that, from this tree we don't eat. But don't assume things. Talk. If he would talk to her and tell her, listen, by the way, The master of the universe told me we can eat from everything, but from this tree we're not allowed to eat, because the day we're going to eat from it, we're going to die. He didn't say that. He should have repeated what Hashem told him, and then it wouldn't be a problem of communication, and she would understand, oh, okay, from this tree I'm not allowed to eat. But nevertheless, good communication is the cure to any type of difficulty in a relationship. I told you in the Shavua, in the week of Yesod, we talk a lot about relationships, because every week we're concentrating on one part of the nefesh that we need to fix. And in our reality, relationships is one of the most dominating parts of our life. I told you already in the previous class on Tuesday, if we would live in isolation, we wouldn't survive. We are created to be next to each other. And very few people, maybe 1 out of 100 million, is able to live in a deserted island, not to have any communication with people. Most people separate them from people, from humans. 2-3 months, they'll go completely crazy. So relationships are a big part of our lives. So we have a whole week to work on relationships. So again, the cure for any type of problem is good relationship. Now, we are called medaber. Humans are called speakers. So an animal is called mehalech, and we humans are called medaber because we speak. We are the only creature in the world that has this quality. And I know some people will say, yeah, but parrots speak, and you can train monkeys to say things. That's not what I'm talking about. We are the only creature in this planet that knows how to talk. I'm not talking about a parrot saying, wah. This is not talking. So we are called in the Lashon of the Torah, medaber. So we have a ma'ala, we have a virtue, we have an advantage of all creatures. And the power of speech, when you're really thinking about it, look what an amazing power. Look now at animals, how they communicate. Okay, they have their way to communicate. But just imagine what a power the Kadosh Baruch Hu gave us, that I can express myself. And I can, not only that, I can communicate with my words. Just imagine how the words can connect two people together. So we have this unbelievable power of what's called dibur. Taking all that, the right communication, it transforms the inner connection between two people to become a completely different type of communication. Two people that have very good communication, once they build it, then they don't have to talk too much. Sometimes it's 2-3 words and I got it. Yeah? You don't have to now give me a whole spiel. So the right communication, and it's not only with a husband and wife, by the way, it's with any person, but the right communication will transform the inner communication to be much more solid and much more healthier, to a point that you don't have to have too much words said. 3 words and you're done. So again, Yesod Yesod is the tikkun, the rectification of any type of problem of communication in a relationship. And in order for me to fix it, is just working on the communication. So practically saying, if you remember, for the Sfira of Hod, Hod Yesod, we concluded it that Hod is Hodaya, is to thank. That in a relationship, I can't take anything for granted. How do you say granted? Grantage? Granted. Last time I think I said grantage and didn't come off so good. But nevertheless, Hod, I know that the entire week of Hod, I said Hod means to admit, Hoda'ah. But I explained also that Hod can be Hodaya, thanking. So last class, Hod Yesod, I said that in a communication, must be thanking constantly. Can't be taking things for granted. Oh, she'll do it, he'll do it. So I have to thank constantly. Now, after I'm in a place of appreciating what people do for me, because in a relationship, if you are not going to appreciate what somebody else does for you, at some point the relationship will go very sour. Because the person will give and give and give and give, and see, they don't appreciate nothing that I do. I don't want to give anymore. So I constantly have to, the Hod Yesod is the thanking, is the appreciating. Yesod Yesod is now it has to be communicated. And not only the thanking has to be communicated, any type of communication. Sometimes the communication can be 3 words. How are you feeling today? Baruch Hashem, that's it. I did my part. I communicated. So going back again, Yesod Yesod is we'll go explain it different. Yesod is the koach, the power of communication in my soul. Yesod Yesod is fixing, doing a rectification of the communication part of my soul. How do you do that? As very, very simple. Instead of thanking, that you also have to do, is you talk. And when you damaged with your talk, the only way is to correct with the talk. Not only in when you want to correct a relationship, even when you're a person damaged in Lashon Hara, damaged in lying, damaged everything, that's the same way how you fix it. It's not only with Lashon Hara and talking. In any sin, what is the remedy to fix? Is with the same material that you ruined. So, specifically at the time of Yesod Yesod, one needs to concentrate on where in my relationships I see a deficiency, not because to find whose fault here. So to look in the relationships. If you have a good relationship, good, then everything is good. But if in specific relationship I have a bad relationship, to look, maybe the problem here is the communication. Sometimes you will look and say, no, I'm communicating fine, that person is stubborn. Now that person doesn't want to give in, or that person doesn't want to forgive. But nevertheless, we're doing a tikkun here, we're doing a rectification, so we want to look in how we relate to all relationships. Now this is not that you do it one time and you're good to go. A relationship constantly has ups and downs, constantly has to be the tikkun of the communication. So specifically the Yesod Yesod is to find out where the communication became a problem. And when you pinpoint where was the problem, specifically in how it was communicated, that's when you're able to do the tikkun. That's why Yesod Yesod is a very important step of the Sfirat Omer, because I kind of look and I backtrack where exactly there was that line that caused the miscommunication. You can speak 100 sentences. Maybe it was one word that caused the whole thing to take a leap. For example, in technology, now everybody's using technology. You use websites and applications, and it's all built with code. And sometimes if it's a very sophisticated application or a website or a software, the code can be thousands and thousands and thousands of lines of code. Sometimes one letter is misplaced or one symbol is not in the right place, and it cuts the code, so to say, and then something goes wrong, or what they call a bug or a glitch. And sometimes one syllable, one letter, it will cause this miscommunication, and then there's no communication from point A to point B. We need to find out where in the communication there was a problem, that the communication was not going well. And by the way, not always it's you. Sometimes you can see where the other person is miscommunicating. Instead of getting upset and impatient, is to see where they're miscommunicating. And then instead of you getting upset at the person, it's just saying to the person, I did not understand what you're saying. Can you say it in a different way? What do you mean when you're saying this and that? Instead of getting impatient and upset. Because maybe that person is not communicating the right way. And he's getting frustrated, he or she, because you don't understand what they're trying to say. It all boils down to how good and clear I communicate. And sometimes all it takes is a few more minutes of patience to see how the communication can come through. And needless to say, it can be a big rectification and a tikkun to relationships. And B'ezras Hashem, we should merit to have good communications in our relationships.